This is Critical Contentions, an endless Arknights survival challenge and reclamation algorithm where the enemies will never stop getting stronger in their ceaseless attempts to wipe you and your base off the map forever. If it falls, there are no save points and your run is ended permanently, resetting you back to the day you started the challenge. Many players will stockpile massive amounts of resources to fight tooth and nail just to get to day 18, the final threshold for main game rewards. But, over the course of the past few months, the survival record for the global server of Arknights has been steadily rising, pushing past one whole in-game year's worth of days survived. The push to survive the longest shows no signs of stopping right now, and as the record climbs ever higher, the chances of misplays, software crashes, or hardware failure ending it all will only continue to grow. But how do we get here? And what do we even need to get that far in the first place? And are there any strategies that we can take away from the best of the best to use in our own playthroughs? We begin our tale on April 25th, 2024, with the original release of Critical Contentions in Expansion 1 of Reclamation Algorithm. Though not here, but on the Chinese server of Arknights. For those unaware, Arknights is hosted on separate servers for Chinese players and for the rest of the world. With Hypergriff, the main developer of the game, being based in China, this means Chinese players receive the latest and greatest updates first. The rest of the world, on the other hand, usually needs to wait about 4 to 6 months before things are translated and localized, all the while trying to either dodge or collect as many spoilers as possible. As such, the scene in Arknights CN is pretty active no matter where you look, and as of writing, the record in CN stands somewhere past the 2,000 day mark. Now, I say somewhere past 2,000 because allegedly there is a current record holder that may have used unscrupulous means to get past day 10,000, which could be mathematically impossible in the time that they did it in. But even though the stats website is accessible outside of CN, I don't have a CN account to double check the record in-game myself, and it's considerably harder to do research on the record history and scandal without being able to speak the language and interview players. Legitimate records or otherwise, Critical Contentions on CN would already prove to be an intense challenge, even in the early days when enemy scaling hasn't grown to absurd levels. For starters, all seasonal debuffs would be in effect, and the seasons will no longer cycle. This means reduced food production from the base, -1 block and reduced max HP for all operators, and no more seasonal refreshes of the resource maps. This, on top of the constant incursion of multiple raids every 3 days, makes extended survival nothing short of a miracle to achieve. Even just to reach day 18, you'd be dealing with enemy damage resistance, friendly operators taking extra elemental damage, and even a reduced deployment limit by the time you get there. It's a long war of attrition, and if you failed to plan, you planned to fail. In theory, global players could have had an advantage. They could see what CN players were doing, prepare operators in advance, and jump in with a head start in knowledge when RACC came to global. However, for the vast majority, this didn't really happen that much, if at all. When Reclamation Algorithm came to global servers, its reception was less than ideal. Its front-loaded difficulty and poor tutorial bewildered much of the English-speaking player base that had already built a notorious reputation for being averse to reading. Even with my guiding efforts, RA is still not nearly as popular as Integrated Strategies, the Slay the Spire-esque roguelike alternate game mode. With very few players having completed the main campaign as a prerequisite to unlock Critical Contentions, by the time the expansion introducing it was released in October of 2024, the pool of willing players that would have been ready to achieve something even close to CN's records was few and far between. Part of this is also because of the second expansion for Tales Within the Sand releasing 2 months after Critical Contentions in December of 2024. This expansion contains some key pieces of new content that would make surviving in extended runs a lot easier, including but not limited to new sources of renewable resources, provisions with buffs that never expired, and new wall blocks that are impervious to all enemy targeting and splash damage at the cost of not being able to block enemies if they're forced to pathfind through them. As such, serious runs for the record would need to be put on hold first, so that these new additions could be collected and stockpiled before the hostile environment of Critical Contentions rendered them mostly unobtainable. It's no surprise then that the earliest pre-expansion record that I could find was at 102 days, posted on November 2nd, 2024. The passing of the new year into 2025 brought with it renewed interest in the Critical Contentions records, as news of the CN server records reached the global community. In the official Arknights Global Discord server, there is a dedicated Reclamation algorithm channel where all manner of discussion about the game mode takes place. Most of the activity in there is usually oft-repeated Q&A, with a few dedicated RA veterans with the patience of the Saints of Laterano being easily recognizable names if you hang around there long enough. One of them went by the name Dragslayer. It's with great confidence that I can say that Dragslayer is one of the most dedicated players I've ever seen, researching CN strategies and pioneering new tech while becoming the most active contender in the RA channel when it comes to discussing strategies. As of writing, Dragslayer is one of 3 known contenders in this push for the Critical Contention survival record, the other 2 being Asadekai and Entropy. I've linked all of their YouTube channels in the description of this video. Just note that Dragslayer's handle is Gravestone Chaser on YouTube as of writing. It's these doctors that we'll be focusing on for the timeline of this record. There may be more lurking within the depths, but unless they speak up or there's a server leaderboard posted, we might not know if yet another doctor will enter the fray to steal this prestigious record right underneath their noses. With the release of the second expansion, global servers entered 2025 with the record standing at 129 days. This record would persist until murmurs of 150 days were tossed around on January 7th, 2025, where Kagareboshi, another RA channel regular, mentions to Dragslayer that a player named Kotkai supposedly held the 150 mark. Then, on January 9th, Entropy uploaded a video of day 133 gameplay, being one of the first videos, if not the first video, posted in the record push. Of the 3 contenders, Entropy may not have been as vocal or as visible in this period, but the insights, wisdom, and incredible skill they have come from countless hours of hard work all the same. Then, on January 12th, Yomi, another prominent poster in the RA channel and author of the excellent RA text guide A Welcome to the Sand, posted a screenshot of the anonymous server record that day, 174 days. It's important to note that even at just in-game day 174, enemies already have more than 4 times their original HP, attack, and defense stats. The other debuffs that max out at day 27 pale in comparison to the fact that every single unit is just harder to kill, your operators will almost always die in one shot if they aren't shielded, and there's almost no way of scaling your operators' damage output to match their gains. More on that later. Only truly dedicated doctors would be able to see these fights through, and the margin for any kind of error, human or otherwise, only grows thinner as the days go on. January would continue to see incredible feats achieved, with Entropy uploading a no-operator raid defense clear on the 19th during day 182. This one in particular worked because with enough boosts to life points from HQ structures and the new Operation Kit consumable, a raid with less units than there are lives is impossible to fail, unless the game crashes. With how intense the resource drain is in CC, a no-operator clear like this one becomes more than just a gimmick clear with the sheer amount of resources saved. Entropy would then upload day 200 achieved, with live commentary on January 20th. This video's commentary contains a lot of foundational knowledge of what is needed to survive the later days of CC, and it's well worth the watch if you're looking to see just how far you can go as well. In fact, I think Entropy's commentary in general across all their videos contains many insights and deserves your attention. They're very much in line with what I'd try to make if I had that kind of first-hand experience. Dragslayer wouldn't be too far behind though, because on January 23rd, they'd upload a day 205 clear to YouTube by chain-stunning Dauntless Linebreaker with Ulpianus. Then, on January 25th, Asadekai finally enters the discussion, asking Dragslayer about who held yet another new record of 213. Compared to the other contenders here, Asadekai is the only one of the 3 with a prominent Twitch presence that I know of, live streaming his RACC campaign regularly. He's also relatively well acquainted and visible in other Arknights sub-communities. In fact, that last part is partially why he decided to start his campaign in earnest in the new year. Ohio Hina, another prominent figure and cosplayer within the greater Arknights community, held her own community Discord event where people would share their New Year's resolutions for 2025. Having heard the CN record news, Asadekai's resolution would be to get the RACC global server record for himself. Of course, this was when the record was still in the hundreds. Little did he know he'd be entering into the biggest push the global record has ever seen. February would see a lull in actual record activity, but renewed interest in Reclamation algorithm with the release of a future RA exclusive module for Unectes over in CN. Presumably, the main contenders were now farming resources and gathering newly released operators for their next record-pushing runs. The bigger their resource stack prior to beginning, the more room for error they would have as the pressures of critical contentions slowly erode away their stockpile with every operation. Mistakes would be devastating to the reserves, but even flawlessly executed operations had a cost. Budgeting and other strategic optimization discussions would happen here too, not only just for tactics to crowd control raids inside of CC, but also for efficiently collecting the valuable resources needed to gear up and hold out. In the Arknights official Discord server, Dragslayer would be the main force spurring discussion, delving into countless strategy possibilities, answering questions left and right, and even finding and using a pathing checkpoint viewer from the CN community in their efforts to construct the ultimate critical contentions defense plan. It's often said that the unglamorous part of science is the most important, and there was no exception here. Every single strategy, resource, and insight would be needed by the three to prepare them for the storm that was brewing. In late March, at long last, the next record post I could find surfaces here. March 23rd, 2025. Dragslayer posts a screenshot allegedly from day 234 killing a wild beast during a raid. More theory crafting between Asadekai and Dragslayer would happen too, laying even more foundations for the knowledge base we find ourselves with today. It's here that we also start seeing even more of Asadekai's streams of his campaign, which would closely trail behind the other competitors. He would reach day 187 that same day after having grinded for multiple streams in February. On March 25th, Dragslayer proudly reports that the Sargon King is back. A screenshot with day 247 graces the RA channel, and it would mark the concrete beginning of one of the most explosive periods of growth for the record. March's record would cap out on March 30th, where Dragslayer enters the YouTube space once more by uploading a 5-minute day 300 kill of Annihilator, plus a little slug racing on the side. As a treat, of course, but also to gobble together what little resources could be gained from a spare act point when the raids were on unideal maps to fight them on. And now we come to April, where even further records were right around the corner this month. While everyone else, myself included, was making various amounts of questionable investments, usually against Jesselton Williams, the RACC record would see itself shattered repeatedly. On April 3rd, Asadekai would be catching up on his Twitch livestream to day 247, while Dragslayer starts us off with a day 310 Annihilator clear uploaded to YouTube. This will be played on Straight into the Abyss, one of the few maps with precious holes players can make use of to bypass the slow DPS grind entirely, assuming, of course, you had the right setup. Heavy use of camouflage would be employed to keep precious push operators safe from Annihilator's raiding party, while pause buffering ensured that if any part of this went wrong, emergency measures could be taken safely. By now, I was beginning to take notice of all of this, and on April 7th, I posted a screenshot of the current global record, 333 days. Dragslayer mentions to me that they were on day 342, but server update lag caused the discrepancy. Asadekai would follow up with ending stream on April 9th at day 328, closely behind the lead. Then another Dragslayer upload on April 10th, day 356 Ruinbringer, taken down on within range. Spanning 13 minutes in length only because it was too laggy to record the entire thing, it's clear by now that this was not only a contest of skill, planning, and knowledge, it's a true test of endurance. However, just because you have the skill, know-how, and the resources available to contend for this record, the inherent difficulty of survival isn't the only thing you have to worry about. On April 12th, Asadekai attempts to push up to day 365, one whole in-game year of critical contentions. I was there to witness this live, but at 2 hours into the stream, catastrophe struck.
Goodbye, please don't die. That was way too many spiders. Okay, I flubbed it again. I am really bad at this one raid. That was a mistake. I should not place that. Last one? Okay, I got 50 out of the way. That's pretty decent. I say decent. That is horrendous. Okay, that's a base fight then.
With all acts used on day 361 and failing to stop Ruinbringer, he would have to stage an HQ defense on day 362. Now, when you defend at your HQ in RA, you may use both acts to defend, but only if you force a retreat on your first act before the HQ is destroyed. This locks out all of the operators you used in your first squad, which means you must play the second act to completion with different operators. If the HQ falls, or your game crashes at that point, the campaign is over for good. While human error is definitely a huge factor to manage when getting this far, a second fear gripped Asadekai as he switched to his phone for the final defense. When it comes to streaming, Arknights has long been emulated on desktop computers since it is much easier to hook up broadcasting software for screen capture there. However, with emulation comes instability, and the game has been known to crash for often inexplicable reasons, even on official emulation channels such as Google Play Games' version. The risks of playing on his phone were non-zero as well. Getting a random call or tapping an intrusive notification could have ended it all, but it was the price he was willing to pay for the security of not ending the run due to an emulation crash. For the next hour, chatters listened in with bated breath to see if the run would yet live. Asadekai would do his best to narrate what was happening, but every bit of focus would be needed to keep the run alive, as the stream continued to show no feed of what was happening inside of his HQ.
142, that's it. Okay, all enemies are on the field. No casters. Caster indeed did die. Come on. Shield guard, die. Shield guard, die. Thank you, shield guard, you died. Alright, next shield guard, you also die. Please. Okay, shield guard's dead. Alright, now I just need to wait for all the fireball casters. For 35 out of 42. 35 out of 42. I'm panicking right now. I know you can't see it, but I'm panicking. Okay, hold up. Stalling. Dubai, come back. Wiz, come back. We're not done yet. We're not done yet. We're in panic mode. Surtur, stall. Surtur's down. Weedy, can it go? That stole nothing, but that was something. Okay, good.
In the end, however, he came through.
Okay, boss is now at a sliver. Boss is now almost dead. Please just die and then nothing else horrible happen. Mission accomplished. The mission has been accomplished. Oh. Oof. I'm alive. I'm alive. Okay, let's see. Where are the resources? I want to see how bad this is. Actually, I'll do this on stream. Hold up. Let me beat up Arknights again.
Ending that April 12th stream on day 365, Asadekai continues to be in the running as of writing, but the lasting consequences of this defense continues to loom over his campaign as he moves to budget his remaining resources against his limited income. But Sock, you might ask, you said this was a three-way push. Surely Entropy has something cooking, right? Entropy uploads a new video on April 13th, showcasing kills of all of the Amiri army bosses back to back. Pretty much every trick in the book is showcased here, from base layouts to specific operator setups. Though this milestone is bittersweet, it would be here that Entropy mentions indirectly that the push could be on hold until acquiring Ak. Now is a good time to mention that Entropy has apparently been doing all of this on a 2.5-year-old free-to-play account. If nothing else, I guess even the most hardcore players can be gatekept by gacha, it seems. With that, we come to April 15th, 2025, the point where I drew the cutoff for the script of this video. The server record stands at 408 days, but it's not shown who holds it. At this point, I figured I'd ask the group for feedback, make the video, and upload it by the end of April. At least, that's what I thought I'd do. What happened instead is that I got in touch with Drag, Asa, and Entropy via Discord group DMs to ask them for permission to use their footage, any good feedback, and if they had anything to say about their plans for the future. By the time I had collected and implemented their first round of feedback, I found this group chat stuffed to the brim with new messages and discussions. In the making of this video, I had inadvertently created the most active RACC group chat, and the record was only going to continue being pushed. April 20th, Entropy uploads a screenshot to the group chat of day 500 reached, and uploads footage of day 490 to 500 on YouTube on April 21st. In one continuous recording, Entropy spends about 2 hours grinding through these 10 brutal days, lending commentary every step of the way. And then, towards the end of the month, an even bigger piece of news dropped from CN that would have implications for the future. More on that later. Needless to say, I knew I had something big on my hands that demanded time, respect, and my very best to present, so by the time this video is uploaded, I'm sure my future editing counterpart will cut in right about now with a segment showing what the server record stands at by the time he finishes editing and this video is finished. Hey, editing sock here. It is 3:39 in the morning. I've been spending all day editing this video just for one last final push, and it is now 5:15. The record is now at 633 days. I am so tired, please subscribe. Regardless of the ultimate fates of their current runs, a lot of survival techniques from these runs are fascinating to look at. Several of these tactics are even useful outside of critical contentions, so let's take a closer look at some of these tactics. Running out of deployment points in the middle of a desperate defense is simply one of the worst ways to go as you look at your grayed out deployment bar in vain. Thankfully, the second expansion brought with it my new favorite way to generate DP. Even before RACC was being pushed, this was already a very potent strategy to use in any RA deployment. Simply get a hunting net launcher, or a stainless skill 3 turret if you have the deployment slot and want to save on stone, and have Puzzle attack it with S1 equipped in a safe location. No manual skill activations, no fuss. Just be sure you like listening to his voice lines. Inez and Chilchuck's S1s are suitable substitutes, but Chilchuck's is a little random and maybe less efficient, and Inez is more often than not better used elsewhere instead of camping the turret. Spare no expense for this campaign. Resources are much easier to acquire outside of CC for obvious reasons, and the more prep work you can do beforehand, the better. Realistically, most of the maps you'll be defending on will be clustered around HQ, but regardless, having built layouts that are usable for the multiple types of raid situations is vital to being able to respond quickly and efficiently to each and every raid situation this mode will throw your way. Some of these other strategies will also require certain positions to be pre-prepared so that no time is wasted fumbling around with fortifications. In the main game, it's possible to easily clear most of Stage 4-4 using just roadblocks only, rerouting Crownslayer to wander back and forth in a shifting maze until the life drain erodes the last of her HP. Now imagine that kind of enemy juggling, but with enemies that threaten to wipe out all of your unshielded operators in one blow. This tactic may cost you a bunch of resources up front to build the maze, and every time you destroy a wall to reroute, but honestly, better the resource stockpile than your HQ. Just make sure you start using the cheaper stuff when you do. If everything will eventually blow up in one hit anyways, the only thing that makes other tiers of constructs worth the resources is the independent cooldown if you need to throw more of them at a problem all at once. So if constructs eventually fail you, how do you stop the ravenous hordes of one-shot wonders? Well, crowd control in Arknights comes in many flavors, but with the sheer amount of SP manipulation you can do in RA, certain operators are able to immobilize or incapacitate enemies indefinitely, provided the correct setup. Ulpianus is one of the best choices here, providing a reliable, long-duration AoE stun that can bring the masses to a halt, as long as you're there to repeatedly re-trigger his skill. Glaucus can do much the same, albeit only being able to provide a bind effect instead. Though, arguably, that may be more useful considering that most enemies are not immune to bind, but can be immune to stun. Speaking of bind, for single targets, Chubai is the most reliable immobilizer, requiring much less babysitting than the Aegirians, if you have the means to boost her attack speed to be fast enough. There are more than just these, combo movement control with some shift operators, and you'll have multiple layers of insurance. But in terms of more traditional stalling, I would be remiss to not mention Vigil and his wolves, who can outscale all the other defenders in the game only in critical contentions. Yes, Vigil, bet you didn't expect this guy, did you? By virtue of the fact that regenerating the wolves can be made extremely fast with SP manipulation, they can serve as a fast regenerating 3-hit meat shield to block a slow attacking 1-hit KO wonder with no fuss once set up. Because of that, I do have to issue a correction on one of my previous videos real quick. If you're taking down everything the old-fashioned way, operations will continue to take more and more time as the days go by. But no matter what day you're on, there are a couple of constants that you can rely on. You know all those videos that Blamichi makes about putting everything in the hole? Take a wild guess at what can still kill mostly everything in RACC without fail, no matter how hard stats have scaled up. Playing golf with the enemies is unironically a viable strategy. It can save you an immense amount of time and resources when executed correctly. All you need is a hole on the map, your favorite shift operators, and Angelina's assistants. Granted, it's still a tedious affair. Bosses are very heavy golf balls, your shift operators will need help stalling in between golf strokes or redeployments, and if something gets shifted where it shouldn't, it could cost you big time. But if you manage to keep everything on par, maps with holes can be very elegant and reliable solutions to bypassing some serious threats. Finally, this last one is what I'd argue is the ultimate culmination of all the challenges and tactics that the record-breaking RACC runs will have you grapple with. Restanding potions and Silence the Paradigmatic create a new level of power previously unavailable to operators other than Surtur, Blaze, and Spectre. The ability to not die no matter how much lethal damage you take for several precious seconds. On maps that don't have holes, this specific boon is used for Al-Rafiq, a mechanized boss unit that will eventually end runs if doctors do not have one specific operator for an infinitely scaling DPS check. You see, compared to all the other bosses that we can take our time with, when Al-Rafiq's health reaches 0, it enters a phase where it gains a new HP bar and tries to repair itself. When this happens, you have 30 seconds to wipe out the boss for good, or else it will get back up and return to phase 1. However, while in this repair mode, the boss will be rendered invisible, and on top of that, it will reflect damage back to any attacker equal to half of its attack stat. If assaulted unprepared, the reflect damage from this boss's repair phase will easily one-shot even the tankiest units in the game in retaliation, much less your squishy damage dealers. But under the effects of a Restanding Potion or Silence the Paradigmatic Skill 3, an operator is free to hit them as many times as they want while they still live. In regular RA, you can easily counter this boss with harder hitting, slower attack speed damage dealers. These can overcome its defenses, win the DPS race, and still have slow enough attack speed to not overwhelm your healers with undue pressure from the reflect damage. However, in RACC, even with every single buff available, there is only one operator that can effectively and consistently beat Al-Rafiq's second phase that has not been power crept out for years.
All you need is a little bang, bum, pow, and they're done. 来一起玩耍盘旋消化嘟噜着气泡的苏打神抓我抓然后再摇一摇尾巴只要有我在的话什么都不用害怕大小可恶不好出发
Yes, that's right, it's our favorite hungry doggo Kyobe. Her passive ability grants bonus damage that scales with the amount of defense that an enemy has. And in a world of infinitely scaling attack, defense, and HP, Kyobe is the only operator in the game as of writing that has something that can scale with Al-Rafiq to break the stalemate. Still, she'll need some help. Detection, or a 3-block unit, is needed to break the invisibility thanks to Monsoon Season's debuff and Al-Rafiq's block count requirement. Practically speaking, the best options are Inez or Scene, since most operators that can achieve 3 block will fall over immediately, and other operators with detection will die to reflect damage on phase 2. Kyobe needs to be in range with her skill 2 ready to go, as well as all support operators that can amplify her damage output. These are namely Saria and sources of fragility such as Suzerain or Read the Flame Shadow. Smoke launchers can work too, but you're going to have to budget wisely. Attack speed buffs like Ox S3 and Siestan Pickled Lemons work well to further scale her damage, and the HP loss is of no concern when she'll be taking constant reflect damage under the effects of the restanding potions and silence drones. Burn damage to further reduce the res or other means of res reduction or ignore also help here, and extra restanding potions will also need to be used on any operators providing these benefits if they would take reflect damage. Interference Mines provide one final 15-second damage multiplier on top of all of this, with the garnish of true damage. You know, just in case. You never know when that 2000 HP might make the difference. Meanwhile, the boss is usually stalled indefinitely to prepare while the rest of the raiding party is dealt with, so extra operators for all that need to be brought along too. And, when the time is right, if any part of this fails and the boss successfully repairs itself, the DPS race must be attempted again. You only get 2 tries with the roughly full duration, as Silence the Pyrodomatic skill 3 only gets 2 uses per operation, and you must combine that with a restanding potion chained together to prevent Kyobe from dying to reflect damage in the middle of the combo. If you're on a budget, the window is even tighter if you want to save on potion materials. But when all of the preparations are made and executed with precision, the result is the final secret to surviving indefinitely in critical contentions.
With your brains, my job is super easy. You're the best, Doctor.
Anything for our infinitely scaling destroyer of run enders, I suppose. Speaking of run enders, even if you were to remove every source of controllable human error and have strategies for every single possible raid composition, I'm looking at you, gargoyles, RACC faces its arguably biggest threat from one simple factor: time. The longer you go in a run, the more inflated the numbers will get, and the longer each individual operation will take to clear. With such long clears, there soon becomes ample opportunity for a catastrophe outside of our control in the real world to strike. Emulation software crashes, hardware failure, power outages, internet disconnection at the time of data syncing, all of these are things that nobody can truly guard against, and if this happens on a final HQ defense, the run is over. That's it. Start again. By now, I've witnessed all 3 contenders having to struggle with keeping the game itself alive at the edge of its limits to continue pushing forward. Dragslayer has been reporting multiple bugs with this game mode for months now, including, but not limited to, the operations station being functionally useless, a targeting bug that puts an undocumented 128 target limit on AoE splash attacks, and a Gnosis skill 2 bug putting the reliability of his crowd control into question by only applying cold and not freeze on a charged skill activation. The fact that I witnessed Asadekai make the call to switch to his phone just to avoid an emulation crash should be testament alone. And even Entropy has dealt with frame-perfect breakpoints, breaking strategies that rely on a stable frame rate. There was at least one quadruple-stacked raid Entropy fought off that brought the game to its knees for almost 30 straight minutes. Remember the big news towards the end of April I mentioned earlier? As it turns out, Arknights is finally getting a native PC client in the future. Time will tell whether this will yield improved performance at the bleeding edges of this game's limits, and I certainly hope that it does. These are people who are willing to put in countless hours into a game to achieve what should be the impossible. I can think of very few acts of respect greater than making sure that their point of failure will be their fault alone and not because of an unfortunate crash, bug, or interaction that happens when they try to put this on display for the world to spectate in awe. Hopefully, the next point of failure doesn't happen soon, but it's always lurking on the horizon, threatening to return all campaigns back to day one without mercy. As it stands, who knows how far these 3 contenders will get in these runs. But I think wherever they end up, they will hopefully be inspiring those who come after to reach even greater heights, and their valuable work in pioneering the record has yielded fantastic new ways to use our beloved operators to their full potentials in RA. When I asked them about their plans, for obvious reasons all 3 have the objective of not dying for the foreseeable future. Dragslayer says that they'll be proceeding at their own pace, as the record isn't worth racing for if it risks more human error. Entropy has continued to publish new milestone videos and is pushing for 100-day milestones. And as for Asa, he's still dead set on holding the record at some point this year, and he'll be streaming almost every minute of it when he can. For what it's worth, I believe that this is one of the most incredible things that a gacha game of all things has fostered. And even if you never touch Reclamation Algorithm or Arknights as a whole, I hope that this story and its insights are worth sharing as a testament to the raw ambition of the human spirit to survive and achieve glory no matter where someone finds themselves in. With that, thank you for watching. Some shoutouts are in order, of course. A big massive thank you to all 3 of our featured doctors for letting me reach out and use clips of their footage, as well as the valuable feedback and corrections they contributed to the script. They have so much incredible knowledge on the inner workings of this game mode that I couldn't cram into this video, so please go check out all 3 of their YouTube channels. They'll be linked in the description of this video and are worth your subscription. And, as mentioned, Asadekai also streams on Twitch. Please, give him a follow over there if you can, and tune in to see his run live. Asa also wanted me to mention some advice if you want to get into RACC yourself. Start sooner rather than later. While RACC is a super late game mode requiring operators and materials, it also demands time, skill, and experience. You don't have to wait to have a built account to start preparing for your ultimate last stand. To quote him directly, "You're not going to know how to set up walls without throwing your own teams at it. You're not going to know if you prefer Angelina or Holheok unless you use both. You're not going to have stone stocked up if you never took the time to farm it." And by and large, I agree. My videos can help you overcome the challenges of the early game, but there's no teacher like experience. And who knows? Maybe you'll find yourself becoming the next record holder if you end up liking it. Next, thank you to all of you who have supported me thus far. This is the first in what will hopefully become a series of long-form good thoughts rounding out my channel's mission statement: guides, goofs, and good thoughts. If you think that's worth supporting, I'm sure you've heard many people before me tell you about all the ways you can do so for free or with your hard-earned cash. I'd rather not remind you, but the fact remains that it is statistically proven that people who could do the things you want them to do tend to not do so when you don't prompt them. And it's true, the vast majority of my watch time comes from people who aren't subscribed, and my reach is not as far as I'd like it to be right now. So subscribing to my channel on YouTube is a great way to support me and help keep up with what I put out next, especially if you're an avid user of the subscriptions feed, where videos won't drown in the sea of algorithmic recommendations the next time you refresh your YouTube homepage. I'll also point out that leaving likes is great, but leaving comments means even more to me. A good comment will leave me elated for hours. I also stream over on Twitch, so if you're comfortable over there, I'd love to see more fresh faces in chat say hi and fill the air with jolly conversation. And of course, there are the paid avenues too. I really wish I could have afforded a teleprompter for this video, admittedly. For a flexible approach, there's Patreon. It's a pay-what-you-want structure there while I figure out what kinds of perks I should offer, and I intend to try and keep it that way as the purest form of a tip jar attached to a blog of sorts. Meanwhile, YouTube's channel memberships are great to have now that I'm a YouTube partner, but I'm limited on the emote slots that I can upload here until enough people purchase them, which makes it hard to achieve parity with Twitch. And speaking of the Twitch side, I'm starting to brush up on the emote limit there too. While I have some wonderful Arknights emotes ideas for my artist and fiancé Hika to draw, I can't have them become reality until these goals are realized, so any support towards those goals is greatly appreciated. With that, I think it's due time I return to less dangerous sands. It's been a hot minute since how to actually play Reclamation algorithm, and I think my early game guidance is past due for an update. Until then, as always, good luck in the sands, and may your base stand the test of time.